Polk County and the state of Florida safe, and I'm excited, and we're going to speak with you in just a couple of minutes. But before we do that, I want to tell you there's two topics today. Obviously, this is the main topic. And then there's one other topic that's not related to any of this. Let's talk about fentanyl. Fentanyl is the drug that is coming from Mexico through a open border, a porous border. And it's killing people all across the United States, DRT, dead right there. And what's important to understand is that it doesn't need to be this way, but since 2018, more than 250,000 people have died as a result of this horrible drug coming to us through the border. 250,000 people. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. If 250,000 people in this country were dying any other way, there would be major attention to that. Well, everyone that's died is someone's son, daughter, brother, sister, relative, mom, or dad. We care. Those of us here today really, really care. But it appears that that's fallen on deaf ears. It seems like every time I stand up here and talk about a fentanyl operation that we work with our colleagues, I'm saying it's the largest fentanyl seizure in the state of Florida. And once again, that's what I'm saying today. With the seizure of 14 kilos of fentanyl, this is the single largest seizure in the history of Polk County, and that's nothing to be proud of. However, we seized it because we were very proactive, because FDLE is simply the best, because Brian Haas, our state attorney, is simply outstanding and makes sure that dopers that are killing people are held accountable along with other criminals. Our state attorney general, Ashley Moody, says, look, nothing else matters if the people of Florida aren't safe and don't feel safe. So we actually began this investigation in August of 23. That's when we began to get information about this Mexican organized crime drug trafficking organization. And as we develop the information, you can well expect that the picture I'm about to show you includes 2 of the 4 of these arrests that we've made here are illegal, illegally in this country. That's right. They didn't come here to better themselves and their family. They came here to kill people in America with a deadly drug through a porous border that we need to seal off. Let me introduce you to this group. This is Sergio Garcia. He's 52. Let me tell you a little bit about Sergio Garcia. He served 23 years in the military, first with the Marines and retiring as a staff sergeant in the Army. Sergio Garcia considers himself, quote, one of the good guys. In fact, when he was delivering these 11 kilos of drugs on the last seizure of the operation, he stopped in Louisiana because he brought the drugs from California, which came across the border from Sinaloa, Mexico. He stopped at a rest area and talked to a Louisiana state trooper, and they talked about the Louisiana trooper's time and service and his service in the military, and the trooper even gave him a coin and a patch. All the while, he had 11 kilos of fentanyl in his car, unbeknownst to the trooper. Now, the other driver was Maria Guadalupe Garcia. She's 48. She's the wife of Sergio. And they were driving this drug and were to be paid $42,500 for bringing this load of drugs from Mexico to Eagle Lake, Florida, where it was to be sold to our undercover actors. Now, this is a husband and wife. She bragged that she was also retired out of the military. However, We have not been able to confirm that at this time. Then there's Maria Machua. When she showed up, she was the money person. She was to count the money. Well, she showed up with her 6-year-old child to do an 11-kilo deal. And then there's Pedro Rodriguez. He's 31. He's illegal. And he was the one that dropped Maria off, and he ran counter surveillance while she was in counting the undercover money. Now listen, folks. She counted this money in English, and she counted it in Spanish, and she counted it in English, and she counted it in Spanish, and then she counted it in English, and then she counted it in Spanish, and finally they said, this lady cannot get this right. She never did get the money count right, but hey, we were able to talk to her and convince her that the money is here, show us the dope, and they did. This all started with the first seizure where we seized 2 kilos of fentanyl in February of this year. In the second seizure, we, with undercover funds from SAFE and FDLE, and our Attorney General is going to speak more about that in just a minute. Whenever we were able to buy that kilo of cocaine, it was at Highway 98 North in Lakeland at a motel. And of course, I told you about the third delivery where we took the operation down was when they brought the 11 kilos to Eagle Lake at a house in Eagle Lake. Now listen, folks, all of this drug was not destined for Polk County, Florida. This operation occurred here simply because of the great work of my detectives, and I'm very proud of them. They are the best in this undercover world, working with some of the best of FDLE. Our partnership is remarkable. But what's frightening about this? If you look at this chart to the far right, you see the entire state of Florida is green. And then you have this orange cutout. The drugs we seized was enough in this last operation to kill every man, woman, and child with an overdose in the counties in orange. But I just didn't have my folks, who are very talented, color Florida green because we like green, even though we do, but because since January of 23, with FDLE and our partners in operations that we have done alone, not counting the others, and my colleague and friend, Sheriff Lima from Seminole County just did a big one, and just before that, my colleague and friend from Pinellas did a big operation. But just our operations since January of 23 and our seizures since January of 23 was enough fentanyl to overdose and kill every man, woman, and child in the state of Florida. That's how dangerous this drug is. The details I'm going to leave to our state colleagues, but I've got to say on behalf of all the people of this county and of this state, thank you to our Florida legislature and the visionary Governor DeSantis for making a lot of money available through our partnership with FDLE so that we can get to these big players. Because keep in mind, we're able to operate at the top levels now. And we're catching this drug before it gets down to the next layer of traffickers and the next layer of traffickers and the next layer of drug dealers that are poisoning our children. I couldn't be prouder than I am of all of the work. In addition to that, since 2023, there have been a lot of people die of fentanyl overdose in Polk County. But my deputies have saved 23 people with Narcan. So you can see this is a dangerous, dangerous problem. So at the end of the day, we're going to keep protecting the people of the state of Florida and of Polk County. So we want to hear from some of what I believe are the best law enforcers in the state that protect us. And first, our Attorney General, Ashley Moody, who stands shoulder to shoulder with us across this state to make sure that the people of the state of Florida are safe and that the bad guys go to jail, is going to speak with us. After that, our State Attorney Brian Haas will come up to speak, and then Assistant Commissioner Massie will speak, and then our HIDA representative, Director Collazo, will speak. General.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
so much. You know, it is always an honor to be in Polk County with your great sheriff and all of your law enforcement leaders, including State Attorney Haas. Boy, in terms of efforts against combating fentanyl, really, this is one of the leading counties. And I think today's announcement, where we're talking about seizing enough fentanyl that could kill a third of our population in Florida, it shows the talent and skill and determination of this agency and their willingness to partner with others in the state of Florida to keep those in this county safe. So I want to thank Sheriff Judd for his partnership and relentless efforts. I mean, 14 kilograms of fentanyl is a lot of fentanyl, folks. And just as this county is one of the fastest growing counties in the nation, it also seems to be continuing to see escalations in the amount of fentanyl that they are seizing. And as we know, this is an incredibly dangerous and deadly drug. And I think the sheriff commented, and I want to expound upon this a little bit. We know that this seizure specifically, enough to kill a third of our state, came from Mexico, specifically in this instance, the Sinaloa cartel, and it ended up in Polk County, Florida. And how does that happen? It happens because our border is wide open. Just since 2021, since Biden took office, over 10 million people have poured into this country. Many have been given a free pass to walk right in with a handshake and a welcome. Many have avoided any type of welcome and just walked on in themselves. And some of those we've just arrested. I want to point out that the administration has not acknowledged that we are now losing more people to fentanyl than any other cause, especially in our working age population. That is a tragedy for a society. Working age, fighting age population, we are now losing to overdose. And it wasn't picked up widely, but I want to remind everyone and follow up on what our sheriff said, and I'm thankful for him for being frank with the people here about what's happening and where this is coming from and why so many officers are having to face a challenge that they never thought possible when they first took the oath and put on the badge. A couple of weeks ago, the Mexican president, Lopez Obrador, said, again, just a couple weeks ago, that he was adopting a Mexico First policy and that he was not going to fight the cartels, violence with violence. It was going to be hugs, not bullets. And that the drug problem and the 110,000 deaths in this nation was a U.S. problem, not a Mexico problem. And he said, I will not combat the cartels to help the U.S. Mexico first. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you've seen this announcement, but now we have two presidents that are Mexico first. The Mexican president, Lopez Obrador, and the U.S. president, President Biden. In fact, not surprisingly, the response of this administration to that, in full display of cowardice, was we have a great partnership with Mexico. That is utterly untrue. In fact, Mexico is doing nothing to stop this flow. And I would submit to you that a real leader of this nation that was concerned with the number one death of American citizens, by far, and by the way, the U.S. loses more to overdose deaths by far than any other country. I would submit to you that appropriate response would not just be, we are going to address the cartels with hugs, not violence, but how about how I have demanded and suggested in that we declare the cartels terrorist organizations and we designate fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction and meet that deadly challenge with the appropriate response that any leader in their right mind would do. And yet, the deputies here in Polk County and the FDLE agents and our HIDTA task forces are left to fend with this overwhelming surge of fentanyl, the deadliest drug that we have seen flowing into our country at this magnitude. They are left to engage and defend and stop and deal with on a daily basis because our president will not do what he took an oath to do and stand up for the safety of this union. As long as the border is wide open, we will continue to see those that have crossed over illegally pouring deadly drugs into our state. Now, I am proud of our efforts here. You heard about the seizure. You heard about the takedown of this organization that's tied right back to Mexico. This operation is similar to many operations we're doing across the state of Florida. Part of that is funded and supported by the SAFE Act that this legislature passed. We are continuing that money, hopefully into the next year, which will support these efforts. We are being very aggressive in our law enforcement efforts to take down the poison peddlers, put the traffickers behind bars. Thankfully, in the 10th Circuit, you have a state attorney like this that will keep them behind bars. But we're not stopping there. We're making sure that our first responders are equipped with naloxone, which is the life-saving drug that can save people who have been addicted and might be overdosing. And we're making sure that people that have been addicted know that now, more than ever, they should get help. Go to treatmentatlas.org to find out how you can seek help immediately, treatmentatlas.org. Because if you have had a substance abuse issue in the past, now, fentanyl being laced into every drug that we have dealt with, it could be the last time you use. DEA says now 7 out of 10 counterfeit pills they are seizing contain a lethal amount of fentanyl. I can tell you the fentanyl seized today would have likely gone into pills, and those counterfeit pills would have likely killed Floridians, including children. We're getting it right here in Florida. We're doing what we can do. We are ferociously fighting back through law enforcement, through treatment of addiction, through equipment of our first responders. In fact, we're seeing a glimmer of hope. And while the national death rate continues to spiral upwards, in Florida we've seen a 5% reduction in opioid deaths, a 3% reduction in fentanyl deaths, and right here in Polk County, because of the great efforts of this sheriff and other law enforcement, we've seen a 4% reduction. Now, are we out of the woods? Absolutely not. Are we going to have to continue to expend resources and put our law enforcement in dangerous situations because of what's happening at the border? Yes. Is it costing taxpayers an arm and a leg to confront this battle unnecessarily? Yes. But thank goodness, and may God bless sheriffs like Grady Judd and all of our great sheriffs. You heard him refer to our partners around the state, our police chiefs, our statewide agencies. Our troopers just took down fentanyl yesterday. May God bless, protect them, continue to send them the courage to clean up the mess that's been created by this administration. And I remain so grateful to folks like Grady Judd who are not afraid to use a big broom to clean up that mess, and indeed, certainly not afraid to back down and hit the cartels over the head with it. So Sheriff Judd, thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to tell you I'm so proud to stand with these folks up here. Our Sheriff Grady Judd, our Attorney General Ashley Moody. We could not ask for a stronger partnership of people that are supporting us in our fight to keep our citizens safe. You know, when we have these press conferences and we talk about the drugs that are being brought into our country and then spread around our communities, the first thing I always think about is the end user, the intended person who, will eventually use these drugs. And it's our kids, our teenagers, our folks who are here just trying to go about their daily lives, and these drug pushers are trying to get them addicted so they can expand their business. And that's where the reality is here. And I think about the danger of these drugs coming into our community and all the things that come with them, the violence and the guns and all the threats. The Eagle Lake location is less than 5 minutes from where I live. This impacts everyone here. And I'm really concerned about the constant flow of drugs and people who are not supposed to be here coming into our communities. You know, last year, my family and I took a trip where we visited another country. When we got to that country, we were subjected to all kinds of questions and pictures and all the documentation that is needed, and I thought it was probably a good idea. When we came back to this country, came home, same thing. Where have you been? What are you doing? Do you have any fruit? All of that kind of thing. And then I see on TV, there's just people just streaming through our southern border, and it's just amazing to me that nothing seems to be done about that. But what we are going to do is deal with it when it comes here, because we're not going to look the other way. The fight in these types of cases, it's so much work goes into it, but the work continues. Our continuing partnership with our statewide partners, our sheriff's deputies, it's going to the courtroom next. And our goal is to put as many of these people in prison for as long as we possibly can, because that's the only way that we can ensure that they're not going to come back and do this again. So I'll close with saying a special thank you to all the people who did their work on this case. The undercovers, the deputies, the FDLE agents, the detectives, those are my heroes. They're putting their lives on the line every single day in very, very dangerous circumstances to make these things happen. And I just want to say thank you to everything that they've done, and keep up the great work. Thank you.
Good morning. As the sheriff said, my name is Lee Massie, and I'm one of the assistant commissioners with FDLE here representing Commissioner Glass, who could not be here today, though he tries to be at all of these. And I'm going to just sort of give an overview of what the sheriff and the attorney general and the state attorney has said, in the sense that we're just extremely fortunate in this state, and especially in this area, to have law enforcement leadership that takes the proactive approach, sort of turns people loose and says, go do the job you're paid to do, that the citizens of the community expect. And before I talk a little bit about SAFE and the great support we've had from Governor DeSantis, Attorney General Moody, the entire cabinet, and the entire state legislature, I want to talk a little bit about, though we can bring those resources to the table and help with the ability to complete these investigations, what we can't do is supplant or in any way do anything to help with just the investigative talent and the risk that the men and women that go out at midnight, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, meet these bad actors, put themselves in position of vulnerability. This is a high-risk job, and there's very rarely is there an opportunity to deal with somebody in this business who is not a bad individual, that is armed when they come to do the deal, or armed in some area of backup, and has a history of violence. So when the men and women that go out in the middle of the night and complete these transactions and take this poison off the street in an effort to protect the citizens of Polk County, the citizens of the state of Florida, the visitors that come to this great state, we should all remember that they are individuals, they have families, and they're not expected to not go home, right? But they put that on the back burner to go out and do this job. So as a 40-year law enforcement practitioner myself, I do, as the sheriff and the attorney general said, I do applaud them, and I do express my appreciation for the work that's done, and I understand the risks that they just go out and do, and they do it with a passion that's just unprecedented. So I felt it was very important to say that. As it relates to SAFE, and you've heard the sheriff and the attorney general and the state attorney reference this. This was an initiative that came out of last year's session. The legislature, the governor, the attorney general, the entire cabinet, and the legislature said, you know what, we're going to provide you what we can provide you as far as tools to complete this. Two of the biggest prohibitors to making these types of investigations successful are monetary resources and jurisdictional challenges. This SAFE program and the partnership with FDLE and the monies that the legislature has provided to us to get out to these agencies, that's removing those obstacles. And this is the reason we are seeing the successes we are. You guys have heard us talk about SAFE at this location numerous times, and the incredible success stories that have come out of this agency and others. Again, the governor has said it worked, the Attorney General has said it worked, the cabinet has said it worked, the legislature said it worked, and we're going to do it again. So they have shown their support by doing what they can do to make this thing move forward. To date, 96 cases across the state of Florida, in excess of $12 million that's already been spent in an effort to combat this poison from getting on the streets of Florida. The dope that was taken off of this case, as the sheriff said, was not staying in Polk County. So every resident in every community in the state of Florida should show some appreciation to the efforts that came out of this investigation, because this poison was going to find everybody. And we, as a result of the efforts of these agents, the capabilities that were provided to us by the elected officials, we have been able to remove an incredible amount of poison from the streets of Florida, saving who knows how many lives. It's always been difficult to maintain stats on how certain programs are successful, because if you're successful, you don't have the stats to get. We don't know how many people may have or could have died from this if it would have gotten into the street, because we got it off, right? So we're very fortunate at the work that was done. We are extremely blessed. The Commissioner of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement has said to myself and others, this will be successful. We will partner with our law enforcement agencies. We have the support of our elected officials, our governor, our attorney general, our cabinet, our state legislatures, and I can't say that enough, because too many times there is this perception that there's a disconnect. In this particular case, there's an absolute connection between everybody that needed to be in this sandbox, and we are showing the results of it. I'm extremely proud to be part of the law enforcement community. I'm extremely proud of being a part of the state of Florida's public safety initiative, and I look forward to continuing to work with the men and women that go out every day to do this job, to provide them the resources that they can. The Commissioner has made it perfectly clear we will continue to do that. The partnership between Sheriff Judd and the Polk County Sheriff's Office and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement is as great a partnership as I have ever seen in my professional career. There is no egos in this game. They are checked at the door. The men and women come out and say, we've got to do the job for the right reason, and they get it done. Sheriff, Attorney General, State Attorney, I can't express it enough. Partnership with our HIDA folks, who Director Collazo will speak next, it's just seamless, and it's working. So thank you to everybody up here. More importantly, to the men and women in the back of the room, thank you so much for what you do day in and day out. And from Florida Department of Law Enforcement, we will continue to drive this truck forward. So thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm A.J. Collazo. I'm the director of the Central Florida HIDA. And as Commissioner Massie said, we are into the collaboration. All of our HIDA initiatives work seamlessly together. And I'm very honored to be here standing shoulder to shoulder with the leadership of these agencies that brought you this investigation. I gotta look at this, the fentanyl, the amounts of fentanyl that were seized here today, and what damage it could be done, that could be done by that fentanyl when it hits the street. The work that they've done to stop that poison from reaching our communities is remarkable, and I congratulate them for the work that they've done. But I also have to warn the public that this is not stopping. We are still continually working. The public has to be educated that fentanyl is very dangerous. We're looking at a little over 2 milligrams of fentanyl can kill someone. You can overdose on that. You have 14 kilograms in this one case alone. So based on their work, it's been remarkable. The results are fantastic. I thank them for their service and for their time, and I thank you all for your time as well. And those of us at the Central Florida HIDA will continue to work with the Sheriff's Office here in Polk County, FDLE, the prosecution venues we have available to us, and continue this partnership in the future. Thank you.
As we close out today, Maria Guadalupe said she didn't know anything about any dope. She was just delivering this box of Huggies from California. Now, when's the last time that you picked up a box of Huggies that weighed 27 pounds? And that's the kind of illusion that they want to create, is this is not dangerous, but it's killing people. So Maria, we don't have any Huggies in the county jail, but we have you there, and that's where you're going to stay until our state attorney and his prosecutors lock you up for a very long time. So that's the end of that particular case, but it kind of segues into the next statement I want to make for you. If you think all of this drug was destined for just the state of Florida, you're wrong. Because of the wonderful work by our undercover detectives from the Sheriff's Office and FDLE and all of their supervisors, we protected and saved lives across arguably the Southeast United States, maybe the entire United States, because traffickers at this level that we were operating would send this drug all over the state, all over the Southeast, and some would travel from other areas. We expect the criminal justice system across this United States to deal effectively with criminals. And the reason for that is all of the wonderful men and women of this nation, which are overwhelmingly just really good, genuine people, got up this morning, sent their kids to school, went to work. They're thinking about what they're going to do this weekend, how are we going to pay the bills. But they're good folks, and they depend on us in the criminal justice system to keep them safe. So let me show you an arrest we made. And we arrested Hermas Craddock in Davenport, Florida, at an Airbnb that someone rented for him, and that's still under investigation. And we arrested him for a warrant out of Pennsylvania, fleeing to elude, 2 counts of possession of a firearm, 2 counts of cannabis, escape, 2 counts of drug paraphernalia, 2 counts of driving while license suspended, 18 traffic criminal complaints, 2 counts of assault, reckless endangerment, 2 counts of DUI, evidence tampering, and he's in our Polk County jail on no bond. And you go, okay, Grady, what's the big deal? He's got a lot of arrest warrants. But do you know why? Here's why. He was already out on bond when he fled from 2 Pennsylvania state troopers and endangered them and assaulted them, and he was locked up again. And this is Judge Xander Orenstein, okay? This guy was hearing what we call in Florida first appearance. Even though this guy is already out on bond for criminal charges and is facing more felonies, this goober smoocher let him go without posting a bond. Did you hear what I said? This guy who the people of Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh expect to protect them and keep them safe, let a very dangerous man out into their community, and he immediately fled to Florida. His mistake was he came to Polk County. But Judge Xander Orenstein, right, is supposed to be a judge that's supposed to use fairness, compassion, look out for the community. And what did he do? He sent a very violent person among the people of Pennsylvania. And then this guy fled because he goes, I'm not showing up for trial because they'll send me to state prison. He should have been locked up. This wasn't his first time. In fact, a chief judge there removed him from setting bonds after this is like his 3rd strike. So it's not new. This guy still can hear criminal cases in Pittsburgh. Well, listen, you don't have a qualified judge here. You have a nut with a black coat on. You need to think about that. People are depending on judges to be fair and impartial, not letting violent criminals back out into the community when certainly the protocols mandate to the contrary. He's not a legislator, he's a judge. At least they say he is. So at the end of the day, folks, there's one more reason to be really proud to live in the state of Florida. We immediately caught this guy. He's in jail. We had to spend resources. Our deputies had to risk their life to take him back into custody because this guy let him out. but he is in jail, and our community safe, and Pennsylvania is safe. And now we want to extradite him, which will cost the state of Pennsylvania more money that shouldn't have been spent because of his recklessness. He is reckless, and the people of Pittsburgh ought to say, we don't want the likes of this dude who lets violent criminals out when the rules mandate they should be given a high bond and are detained until trial because they've already let him out once. So anyway, if you want to see a total failure as a judge, here's a picture. Okay? Any questions about any of the operations?
Sure, you mentioned two of the first four that were arrested. You said two were illegal. Where are the other two from?
The other two are from the United States. They came from California. That's their current residence. Sergio and Maria are from California. They are retired military. Maria, by the way, has been stopped and turned around at the border multiple times. However, Pedro was slicker and got away. And then she finally was able, she hit the border enough that she came across. The reality of it is, folks, very dangerous people are coming into this country with their drugs to take our money and kill our children. And it needs to stop. And that's at a pay grade above me. It's the President of the United States that has to issue the orders and stop that conduct. And I'll assure you one thing. He has the authority to stop it. And he could. He doesn't want to because he really doesn't care about you. He doesn't care that they flood drugs across here and kill your children. If he did, he'd stop the cartels from pushing drugs across this border by the metric ton. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a good day.